I'm curious, how many of you have ever uttered the phrase, "but first"? I do it all the time. I have 3 young kids, and they are always tugging and pulling, and "Mommy, can you get me this? Mommy, can you do that? Mommy, 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 come play, come do this." And frequently, it's, "Okay, I'll be right there, but first let me put dinner in the oven," or "let me put away the dishes," or "but first I really need to put your laundry away so you have clothes to wear tomorrow." Always, always, but first. And all of those things, I know, are incredibly important, because if I don't put the laundry away, then tomorrow what's going to happen is, "Mommy, mommy, can you get my shirt?" Because I'm the only one who knows that the shirt is still in the dryer and has not been folded and put away. And yet, when my kids say to me, "Well, Mommy doesn't need to take naps or get as much sleep because Mommy doesn't need as much energy," we're big on energy in the house, that they need to sleep and get good rest so that they'll have energy to play. Well, Mommy doesn't need that because Mommy doesn't have to play. Mommy just has to make dinner. Well, then I realize that my kids are starting to think that making dinner is the most important part, that that's what I need to do, and not spend the same amount of time with them that I'd really like to spend. And so, on Tuesday night, when we had a vestry meeting, and it was an extended meeting, starting at 5:30, which meant I was not going to eat dinner with my kids or see them or put them to bed, I had planned to make them a good dinner to have before I left. I had maybe an hour and a half to spend there, and I said, "You know what? We have some frozen chicken nuggets that can be easily heated up. So Mommy has to go to work in a little while, but first, let's go play outside." And so we got into their kiddie pool that they love to play in, and when I went to the vestry meeting, I still smelled the chlorine on my skin, and I was finally proud of the "but first" I had uttered. Our gospel reading this morning is a litany of "but firsts." And it's challenging. It really is. Because if we take that at face value, if we take the responses and the interaction between Jesus and these men and read them literally, well, we really have to ask Jesus some questions. Are you really saying, Christ, that this man is not doing God's work if he doesn't bury his father? Are you really saying that this other man is doing the wrong thing if he wants to say goodbye to his family, to the people he loves? We struggle with those things. It's those readings that we get, those things we hear Jesus saying to us, that make us really question what this message is, what it is that we're doing. Well, the key here, I think, is in timing and context and intention. So first, timing. We get a clue to this, the very first sentence of our gospel reading. Jesus has set his face towards Jerusalem. What does that mean? He's moving towards his death, towards the greatest trials he has ever faced, and he's faced a lot. And so, as he's walking along and asking people to follow him, this isn't him at the beginning of his ministry saying, "Hey, come and join me." This is Christ at the end, gathering up as many people as he can to bear witness to this journey that he's on. to give him support, to be with him as he suffers. It's in these moments that Jesus saying, "Come, follow me, be with me," those are desperate pleas. It is needed, that presence, that witness. Context is so important. The other thing is intention. So the response for these people who are saying, yeah, I'll follow. Of course, I'll be right behind you. But first, he can't say no, I can't bury my father. So let me bury my father, and then I'll join you. What's the intention here? Is the intention to really go and do this funeral and then come back? Well, maybe. But in reality, how long does a funeral take? How long does it take to bury someone? Certainly not minutes. Maybe not even hours. It's going to be days. And you are the son. You have a lot of responsibility at this funeral. You have a lot that you need to do. Is Jesus going to wait around? Are you going to somehow know where he's going and meet up with him? Most likely what's going to happen here, and when you say goodbye to your family, is you get pulled into life, pulled into the messiness of relationships, pulled into those needs, those important things that you need to do to prepare for that burial, to see it through, to give proper goodbyes to your family and friends. And before long, what happens? It's the same thing that happens to me. When I tell my kids, I'll be right there, and I put dinner in the oven, and then there's dishes to be cleaned, and they're off playing and having a great time, and I think, well, they don't need me. They'll be fine. I'll finish this up. That's what happens. These men, with all the logic in the world, want to do what needs to be done. But what will happen is they will go and do that task, and they'll get caught up in that life, in that responsibility. And soon, you begin to say, well, Jesus has a lot of people with him. I'm just one man. I'm just one woman. What am I going to do? I'll stay and do what needs to be done, and I'll spread the good news from here, and I'm going to keep at it right from my own home, my own place. And you don't follow Jesus on his way to Jerusalem. You don't say, but first, let me follow you, Christ, and come back for the rest. We get caught up in these things with good reason. And it's hard, it is so hard to determine when and how to use your abilities and your skills and how to respond. What is most important? What needs to come first? Well, we have a great example of that this morning. In just a few minutes, we are going to baptize baby Eliza. And Susan and Brian, they had an important decision to make. Now, if you've ever raised a child or been around a child being raised, you know there are a lot of things that go into that process. You hold that little baby in your hands, and you see an entire life in front of you. All of the doctor's visits, and you need to find the right doctor. All of the schools, and you need to find the right school. Move to the right house that's in the good school district. You've got to put up those baby gates so that they don't get to where they shouldn't be. You have to keep them safe. All of these things that need to be done. And what Brian and Susan said for Eliza is, we'll do all of those things, but first, we're going to baptize her. But first, we are going to make sure she is a part of this community, that she is marked as Christ's own forever, so that when she does go to school, when she does go to doctors, when she does grow up and get married, and eventually, many, many years from now, have to say goodbye and conduct her own burials for people she loves, she will have started with Christ. Now, baptism can happen at any point in time. Don't believe that it has to happen when you're a baby. It doesn't. But when you feel that call in your life, when you hear God speaking to your heart, and you know this is something I need to do, this injustice that has come across the news I need to respond to, when it settles into your gut and you can't get rid of it, God has a call on you. And that is when you say, but first, before I do all of these other things, I need to say yes to God. I need to say yes to this. There's a whole lot of excuses that we can make in our lives. There's a whole lot of good that we can do. What we need to figure out, what we need to face this morning and all the days of our lives, is what is at the heart of the importance in us, within us, deep inside. What is most important? And how do we show that in thought and word and deed? It's not choosing between following Jesus and burying our parents or saying goodbye to our loved ones. It's not as simple or as cruel as that. What faces us, instead, is identifying those things that God is calling us to do, to knowing them, to seeking them. What faces us is how we use that phrase, but first.